Hi, welcome to A Card Cat Mate. Today I wanted to share with you one of my favourite techniques using this beautiful embossing folder by Spellbinders, funnily enough called Beautiful Butterflies. Thanks for joining me, and I might zoom up during some of this to not make you sit through the whole thing. Well, I'd like you to sit through the whole thing, but make it go a little bit faster for you. So to use this embossing folder, I actually need to take out one of my cutting plates, and I also need to take out my thin lid adapter for using dies. So I'm actually just using my top cutting plate, which I normally don't actually use to cut anything, but we'll see there that I may have accidentally run it through as a base plate once. These things happen. And I actually have to just use 3 pieces of 300 GSM cardstock as a shim, as shims, to help me get the right pressure. So I put them down on top of my base platform and we're ready to go. So when we're embossing card, it's always really good to spray it down with a little bit of water first, because that helps loosen the fibers and break them down, so that when you run it through the 3D embossing folders, because they're so much deeper and you can get such beautiful definition with the embossing, if you've sprayed it with water first, it actually allows the fibers to loosen and therefore they won't tear when they go through. And so it makes it so you get beautiful embossing and not torn pieces of paper. Now you can choose where you'd like this to be based on what you want, how many butterflies you want. I think there looks quite pretty. So let's give that a go, run that through. I've got a couple over here that I've already got ready for us. Save a bit of time and not make you sit here and watch me run stuff through my die cut machine all day. So we've got that. Place that there so that you can see a bit better. Open up this and look at what we've got. Look at the beautiful raised and lowered texture there that we've got. So this bit's just a little bit raised, and then we've got the really raised bits on the edges of the butterflies, and that helps for this little technique that I'm going to show you in a minute. And then I thought we'd try a bit on orange, which is so far from being my favorite color, but let's see how it goes. Just trying to spray that off my working area a little bit, turn my card over the right way. I'm just working with a textured card. I just picked it up at Spotlight here in Australia. You can use whatever card you want. I'd go with a slightly higher GSM or pound weight if you're in the US. I think 300 GSM is 110 pound cardstock. I'm not 100% sure, so please don't quote me on it, and feel free to tell me that if I'm wrong. And we'll run this one through. I just lined that up down the bottom corner a little bit so I had a few more butterflies, but that's because that's where I wanted it to be. No other reason. And we'll take that out. Oh, once again, beautiful. So no, I really like that as that sandwich gives me great pressure. Just 3 pieces of plain white, like not super flimsy but not thick card. Yeah, 300 GSM. And I'll pop my die cut machine together and pop it out of the way. Now I've already got a silicone mat down here, and we're going to need that because now things are going to get messy. Here's where the fun starts. I've got 3 colours here. I thought I'd do blue with the Distress Oxide Salty Ocean. Ooh, I could probably move the shims out of the way as well. I thought we'd have the Squeezed Lemonade with the orange. As much as pink and red aren't supposed to work, I actually think this red has a touch of more pink tones in it, so I thought that would give that a go. And I thought, let's go completely opposite and try some purple on some green and see what we get, because you never know until you give it a go. And it's always fun to play with craft, because what what's the worst that's going to happen? We waste a piece of paper if it looks ugly. That's why card making is so much fun, because what are you really going to waste? We're playing with paper. So now here's where things feel really wrong, and it doesn't feel like things that you should be allowed to do. So we're going to take our Distress Oxide pad and we're going to swipe it straight onto the card. As strange as that sounds, we're not using any brushes, we're not getting out foam pads, we're not doing any of that. We're going to get the Distress pad and we're going to just slightly swipe it across the card. Now, this doesn't look like it's doing a lot because they're similar colours, but the Distress is just that little bit lighter in colour, in tone, than what the card was. So that's just going to lift up just a little bit in those spots. I wanted to do this one just as a show very similar colours together, but wait until we see the next one. I think we're going to get quite a difference. So that I laid fairly thickly on there. I try not to start on the actual card so that we don't get any little square patches, and start just off the edge and move onto it, and there we go. Now, I don't care about any of these bits that we might have in the background because it just adds to the texture of the card and I think it looks beautiful. So we'll I'll show you that one up there a little bit. Now I'm going to, in a moment, move across to the green, not the green, the yellow, but I want to show you just a little trick that I can't help but do whenever I'm using basically any inks, but especially oxides. I feel like all this ink that we have down here afterwards is such a waste of ink, and I just can't stand wasting ink because I paid money for that. I want to get every last bit of it I can. So if you spray that with a little bit of water, you can take a card and you can pick up some of that ink and do a bit of a water effect on a card and save that later for die cutting, for a background, for whatever you may need. And instead of then wiping that card, like that mat, off and that all just going into the bin, we now have a bit of a background that we can use for future projects. Now let me just get a piece of paper towel from down here and wipe this up, ready for our next colour, just because I should have probably started with yellow as my first colour. So let's get this beautiful orange card. I don't actually mind this shade of orange, but there are some shades of orange that I'm just not a personal fan on. Now, this is squeezed lemonade that we're going in with now. And I'm just swiping over the whole thing. I think that needs a little bit more down the bottom here. So I'm going to go back again and go in a second time. Oh, that's come out so much more vibrant the second time. That was great. I'm glad I did that. Oh, and that looks fantastic, if I do say so myself. So I'll just put that across to the side over here to dry, so you'll get to see that drying. And let's see if we can get a bit of a marbled effect with this. It's not 100% dry. Normally I try and dry it down a little bit in between, but let's see what we can pick up with some of this. Well, we got a little bit, but not a lot. Let's grab another piece of card. I'm just going to smush the whole thing down and see what we get with it at the end. And I find these are good for when you need to cut out a butterfly, or sometimes some flowers or that sort of stuff, and you want something that's just got a little bit of a pattern to it, but not, or a little bit of colour to it, but not a whole big bang, and not necessarily blended completely. Just want a little bit of a haphazard design. I think that's a really great way of doing it. So let's try the red, or the pink on the red now. I may have used this with my purple just before and it's bled a little bit, so don't mind that. come up really well. Really happy with that. So I'll put that one across there as well. And once again, we're going to do a spray down. Use the same piece of card. See how we're getting it in different areas? That's kind of what we're going for. And we're not going to get it all, but it's good to use up that bit that we did get. Waste not, want not. I just figure I paid for that ink. Just because I spread some of it too far doesn't mean I don't still want to use it. And now, my experiment. Let's see how we go. Let me pop these next to the ones that they're with. Sorry about that. Alright, here we go. We're in this together, guys. I actually really like that. I don't mind the bits down here where it's touched because that just adds a little bit of texture to it, I think. But hasn't that made those butterflies absolutely pop? I think that's fantastic. So I'll give another little quick wipe down. Let's see if we can lay down some purple on top of this yellow and pink that we've got. And then we'll quickly turn these into some cards, which is so quick and easy to do. And then you have these fantastic cards that look like they've taken you a long time, and they have actually been remarkably easy to do. We have a mess, but I think quite a beautiful mess there. I mean, there are bits of it that are a bit scary, but there are bits that would make beautiful butterflies or flowers and all sorts of stuff, and I'd rather that ink be on a piece of paper and in my die cutting box than on a piece of paper towel that's going in the bin. So we wipe that down, and then we can get this out of the way, stack these oxides up so they take up a little bit less room. Pop these cards over here. And let's get making some cards. I will at some stage grab some sentiments out and pop them up so that they have something on them. Be like that. These are just some butterflies that I had left over from my daughter's birthday party. So I've got this beautiful one, the blue, please share which one's your favourite. I'd love to know, and I'll pop some sentiments on these, might pop something inside. And that one just has a, instead of texting, I sent you this. Have a lovely day. Thanks for joining.